All right. So at animation, when it started, it was just a commercial studio because we said, okay, the model is very simple. Get a client, do the job, get paid. So you sustain in revenue.
Yeah.
However, as we thought bigger, because you always must think on your feet and ask, okay, in terms of 5 years from now, what do we want to do? We did our market research and we realized that mentorship and training was lacking for animators, not just in Kenya, but in Africa. If you needed resources, you definitely get it internationally and not locally. So that was a very big gap. But second thing, and I ask you, have you ever watched a Kenyan animation movie yourself?
Kenyan animation. Really, no.
No? Why not? Why not? Because we're not creating them, right? So we thought, okay, the third thing we want to do as ad animation is tell our own stories through film, right? And that's animation production. So that's how we somehow got into the model that we've now adopted. And we're very so convinced that that's us starting conversations that have not been had. And even though we don't get to change in the entire Africa, at least we would have started the conversation at the table.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least people know there's something we need to touch on.
Yes, absolutely.
Not your financial startup.
All right. So, ad animation was very privileged because ideally, when you're saying you want to start a business, there are very key things that you need to look into. First, it's your finances. Second, you have office space. You need to hire people, so you need a budget to pay salaries. You need to buy equipment. Now, there's an entity called Adalabs Africa, which is a venture studio that looks to groom startups from ideation, incubates them for 1 year, and then from there, in between, they've been able to support you financially, they've been able to help you meet investors, to market yourselves, to build your tech, because it's also a tech company. And so in 1 year, then you can stand on your feet and you've been generating revenue by yourselves, so now you're comfortable to go. Now, the only thing that they get to do is also they get percentage stake in your company, which is good because it means they can't afford you to fail.
Yeah.
So that's where we started. Adalabs Africa then therefore stood in the gap for us financially to get us the equipment and the people to pay salaries and the office space that we're sitting in now so that we could start. And that's how we're getting to 1 year next month. Right? And it's very interesting because about 3 weeks ago, we just got our first pre-seed funding from a venture capital called Platform Capital in Nigeria. And so it means that when you start doing something great, people are listening, people buy into your vision, and they're willing to support you to get to where you need to get to.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this foundation actually saw what you guys are doing and they decided, I want to move with other animation.
Absolutely. And we're very humbled by it because it's not every day that someone is saying, I'm willing to put my money in your vision and I'm willing to trust that you will pull through. And so it's very exciting for us to see how then can we also create more opportunities for other animators like ourselves, and we keep saying there's a piece of the pie for everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you said you did PR at school.
I did.
When it comes to animation, do you need the papers to do this animation, or do you just need the skill set? With the people that you have, did you look at their papers, or did they just come and show you, Joy, I can do this, and this is what I can do for other animation?
Yeah. That's a very interesting question, actually, because when you look at it, there's the high 5 issues or key things that I think animators go through, and not just animators, creatives in a nutshell. And so the first thing is our training fees are very expensive, right? So you find that for you to take, for example, if I mention some of the softwares that we're using, we have Toon Boom, we have Maya, we have Blender. Some of them are very expensive to acquire. So you find that you have different styles. So there's 2D, there's 3D. You have within the animation team, there's an illustrator, there's a storyboarder or someone who does your character designs. You have a script writer. So it means animation cannot just be done by one person. It's a community because everybody has to bring their weight to the table and their skill to make it come into one, right? So you asked a very good question, and your question was, do you need papers or do you need the skill? Unfortunately, in the corporate industry, you need papers, not just in animation. It cuts across, because they're asking you, what have you done? When we were hiring, we didn't look at the papers, we looked at the portfolio. So we're saying you have a skill, then I want to work with you. Furthermore, I want to work with someone who's bought into the vision of telling their own story through their skill. Right? So we're changing the narrative. But if you look at the challenges that we have in the animation industry, we've said, first, it's expensive training fees. Second, software and hardware is very expensive to acquire. There's high tax incentives on you to ship in equipment. You have copyright law issues. So as an animator, you don't even know what the law has said to protect your work. So you go to a client, you pitch your work, and they're like, cheers. And as soon as you walk out the door, then they just replicate what it is that you've pitched to them. And now when you go to court, they're saying, but an idea is an idea until you copyright it, right? And also we lack mentorship. So it means that yes, you can go to school, but in terms of skill, we as Ad Animation are trying to bridge the gap between the animation stakeholders and the African stakeholders locally, so that we're exchanging notes and ideas. I'd love to know what's Disney, what's Picna, what's Walt Disney doing that we need to adapt. How did they get there? So we need to start exposing ourselves on that front. Yes.
So, and generally, is there a difference between cartoon and animation?
Yes, there is. Well, yes. So, not that it's a difference, it's just that in the definition, animation is bringing to life a look and feel. It's a process. Animation is a process. Cartoons are more comic style designs, and I'll give an example because I don't want to be too ambiguous. If you take Dexter, for example, you have you have Dexter, you have Didi. All these are comic styles that are not real, are they? No, then they're more caricature, right? But when you look at animation, for example, you have Moana, you have Lion King, you have the very recent one was Soul. I don't know that you watched it, but these are more realistic looks and feel. So you can tell it's a man, but it's an animated representation of a man. When you look at the city, they're drinking, they're eating, just like we do in normal life. So animation is just the process of bringing that to life, while cartoons fall more on a comic style, which is what we see with SpongeBob, we see with Dexter, and oh my gosh, I wish I was mentioning African cartoons, but we're getting there. We're definitely getting there.